Okay, we are now recording. So today's Art and Business Breakfast presentation is a partnership between the museum and a project at the Historical and Cultural Society of Clay County called Warriors in the North, Healing Through Arts. It's an art exhibition that was produced by local veterans, directed by Dr. Margo Norton, who is one of our presenters this morning. She is with the Fargo VA healthcare system. And the exhibition is currently on exhibit, and I think it goes through March 6th. Is that correct, Marcus?
So yeah, okay, good.
Yeah, plenty of time to see that. That exhibition is receiving a great deal of local and regional support from the Lake Region Arts Council, which is through the Minnesota's arts programming. The North Dakota Council on the Arts that also receives funding via the National Endowment for the Arts, FM Area Foundation, the Alex Stern Family Foundation, and the Arts Partnership. Thank you, Dana. And the Arts and Business Brunch is supported in its 5th year by Heartland Trust Company. I'm going to let each of the presenters introduce themselves. We'll start on with Dr. Margo Norton.
Thank you, Sandy. So I'm a psychologist, as Sandy said, at the Fargo VA. I've been employed there for about 13 years now. Started in a post-deployment clinic there, which we had when there were many service men and women coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan in 2008 and a few years after. And quickly, as a result, became, I guess, kind of an expert in PTSD, as well as the moral injuries of war that I'm happy to speak about today, if that's a topic of interest to people. So it was, so I've been doing this since 2008, thinking about kind of, the complexities of obviously knowing about traditional PTSD therapies, but also what might be missing in some of those therapies in terms of some additional healing components. And in 2016, we started a mask making project locally that actually was born out of a project that was created at Walter Reed Army Medical Center in DC area, working with service men and women coming home with TBI and PTSD. And that was our inspiration. There was an article in the National Geographic in 2015 that talked about the art therapist there that started this project, and happened to have we have interns, psychology interns at the Fargo VA every year. And one of them just happened to have some knowledge and connection locally with some people. That's how we got involved in Project Unpack that Josh Zeiss there was involved in, and things just kind of evolved from there. It was about 2 years ago, I think, that we started the current project as a result of a Vietnam veteran in town with arts connections introduced me to the folks at the EM Comps there, and we started the current project with a little bit of a break because of COVID. We decided it was important enough. We had enough momentum that once we felt it was safe enough to begin meeting, and actually we began meeting remotely to kind of get this going again, and came to fruition in the last couple of months.
Thanks, Margo. Marcus Kruger.
No, I'm the programming director of the Historical and Cultural Society of Clay County. I guess I've been there for 15 years or so now, and I do have an art background. I was an art major, an art history major over at MSUM, and so this is a project that I love combining the arts and history, because I am, I think, primarily a local historian, and also hang exhibits and put exhibits together. So this is an exhibit where history happens in people's lifetime, talking with Vietnam veterans and Iraqi war veterans and Afghanistan veterans, and also peacetime veterans. The people's trauma doesn't, military trauma doesn't necessarily have to happen in a country overseas. So I'm from I didn't serve myself, but I'm from a military, like a lot of people I'm from a military family. And so this project is really, the subject is really close to my heart, and the project is really close to my heart. So this is a passion project for me.
Thank you. Dan Hudson.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. My name is Dan Hudson. I am a local military veteran, and I've been a law enforcement officer for nearly 27 years now. I am a PTSD survivor, and going through the healing process of PTSD, and throughout participating with Dr. Norton and Marcus through Warriors in the North, we decided to start a music portion of Warriors in the North, which has really been a blessing to me. I've always had a passion for music, and I've always been a writer. I wrote a book about my experiences nearly 3 years ago now. I can't believe how the time has gone by so quickly. And from that, things have just blossomed for me. And I found it the best way to serve my fellow veterans, maybe going through the same journey as I went through, or a similar journey, to help explain maybe, hey, there's things going on in your life, and here are some options other than maybe addiction or other type of things that are not productive in the healing process.
What instrument?
I play the drums, I play bass guitar, I play rhythm guitar, and I'm really trying hard on lead guitar, but I think I'll stick with the drums. I really have a passion for drums.
You are your own rock band.
Yeah, I tell you what, I have to learn how to do this music software a little bit better so I can record myself.
Okay. More than 41 million Americans have served in the military over the course of the United States history. Today, on this Memorial Day, we honor millions of US veterans who have served in the military forces since World War I. Today, an estimated 13 to 14% of the 19 plus million US veterans are being treated for PTSD. And PTSD is perhaps not too far away from all of us. I know that for my wife and I, well, her son, who served in Iraq, is a PTSD survivor. We have seen the difficulties that he has had to go through with that, and have watched at sometimes some progress and sometimes some not so progressive. In 2018, the Americans for the Arts created a list of the 10 reasons to support the arts. And one of them was for the healing and well-being of our military. So our conversation today, and I'm hoping it is a conversation and not just a Q&A, hoping to provide some insight into what role do the creative arts play in the healing and recovery process of veterans and military personnel? How are the arts assisting with PTSD and traumatic brain injury? And how is the cultural sector helping vets return to civilian life? You know, those and other topics I hope we'll touch on. So we're going to start with the small stuff and then let the conversation go where it wants to. So my first question to each of our panelists is, when did the arts first enter your life? And let's start with Dan.
That is an excellent question. As far back as I can remember, my father had a guitar and they accidentally sent him two, and I was probably 5 years old. And he and I had identical guitars, and he started teaching me some basic chords. Well, they didn't have any words, so then I started writing. So I would, almost as far back as I can remember, I've been involved and had a passion for writing and music.
Marcus?
I've always been an art kid. I can't remember, still am. Can't remember not being an art kid.
Maker dude?
Yeah.
What medium?
I'm a printmaker, painter, do anything with wood. So that's
Okay. Margo, when did the arts enter your life?
It's for me, as long as I can remember as well. My mother was I consider her an artist, very humble. She never had official displays or any of that sort, but many forms of art she introduced me to. My sister is actually an art teacher, K-12 art teacher in northern Minnesota. So I always felt like I didn't quite, my own artistic ability didn't quite compare to my family's, but always had an interest and always had a passion for it. And this is actually a perfect way for me to kind of share that and meld my background in mental health with the arts.
Okay, so the follow-up question is, how have the arts affected you? What's been the change in your world because the arts are in it? Any of you?
Well, just for me in the healing process, it's allowed me a platform, especially on the music end, to express really what's going on in my head or in my life at that maybe even time. And it could even be historical, and combine that. And the beautiful thing about music is there's really no language barrier. It doesn't matter who you are. And quite frankly, there's not a lot of rules to it. So it's an open platform for me.
Marcus, you put together an exhibition that, even though you're not a military person yourself, but have a military family, I'm sure you came into contact with a number of vets who were struggling and dealing with it. How was there a transfer between you and your art engagement and these military vets?
Well, I think that all the credit should be given to the veterans and to Margo, because I just arranged it on a wall with the help of other people. Yeah, this exhibit is kind of anchored on a few established artists, like Josh Zeiss has his return project. Photos from that project are there. We have large, intense paintings by an artist who wants to remain anonymous, and they're as good as any Baroque painting I've ever seen. And Dan Hudson's music project, Project Check 6, is it adds to the media of this exhibit. And then Ken Anderson's portraits of photographic portraits of veterans, they kind of are. That's one aspect of it, anchoring that, and it's just such so inspirational to meet all of them. I knew Ken from before, but I just met Dan through this project and Josh through this project, and as well as our anonymous artist, and then the rest of it is the rest of the exhibit is it's works of art that are created. I guess the rest of it is the mask project that Margo's been facilitating for years at the Fargo VA, and it's just, those are works of art that are done by just regular people who may consider themselves artists, may not consider themselves artists. It's just anybody. It's one of the treatments, I guess, one of the projects at the Fargo VA that she should talk more about. But so really what I did is what I loved about this process of Warriors in the North is that we had a steering committee of veterans, and Margo and me and other HCS staff. And for what we did at the museum was just kind of provide the stage and say, what do you want to say? And then it's up to us to figure out how to say it, or how to display it, or you can put it on a text panel. What do you want this text panel to say? So it's all them.
Okay, Margo, how have the arts affected you?
It's a nonverbal way of expression. And what I've come to understand with PTSD, the way PTSD kind of evolves and develops in people's bodies and brains, It's in some parts of our bodies that can be, and brains that can be kind of processed or accessed through verbal expression, but not all of it. Trauma also lives in our bodies and brains in nonverbal ways and nonverbal places. So the arts can be a very powerful way of getting access to things in our experience and our history and the way things are stored in our brain in a way that just talking about it can't. So that's how I found it to be such a powerful part. And again, that melding of kind of mental health, trauma recovery, and creative arts, and using that as a way, as a portion of recovery.
I have two follow-up questions. Margo, you did the mask project, which you indicated you came from another institution. What is it about masks that makes it so accessible?
So we give them basically a mask made out of cardboard, a 3D, image of a face that's sitting in front of them, in which it's almost like it's a reflection of their own selves sitting in front of them. And then we give them all kinds of different mediums, paint, all kinds of things that they can use to kind of design a mask somehow in the image of their trauma experience or their recovery from that experience. Like Marcus said, most of the people who do masks for us do not consider themselves artists at all. And for those, and also for those who have some artistic background, this is a very powerful experience, a very vulnerable experience, because they're putting something so personal, so intimate, kind of physically in an image that's right there in front of them. Again, ways that verbally they haven't been able to express, or some of these folks haven't been able to express all of their trauma verbally at all. And so this being kind of an avenue or an opportunity to process that, and then to share it with others by explaining kind of the image that they created in the mask and what those things are representing for them personally.
I dare say it's something that we all could do.
Absolutely.
Dan, what is Check 6?
Operation Check 6 is an organization that my wife and I started. It's a 501c3, and we started it in March. And the mission of Operation Check 6 is to promote the healing of those who are healing from trauma, first responders, veterans, and their families through the arts and entertainment. And it was a passion of mine, right down to the name. It was something my commander had told my unit prior to deploying overseas, to check your 6, check your back, and watch your partner's back too. And after the unfortunate instances of losing a couple of my very close friends to their own challenges and demons that they were facing, and discussions with my wife and my own journey, we figured now was a good time to maybe start a therapy program that involves the arts, because it was so helpful for me.
When did each of you become first aware of the connection between an art form, an art practice, an art belief, and the process of healing?
Well, I'll tackle that one too, if that's okay with you. For me, it's when I was able to think clearly. Part of my PTSD recovery was mindfulness, accountability, and short-term memory. I was having a terrible time remembering things, and I still do. But what it would force me to do is open up this portion of my mind, and Dr. Norton can probably speak so much better on it, and allow these thoughts to project where I could actually see them instead of them just running through my mind like pictures flashing in front of me. I was able to actually put it down on paper or a picture. I do a little painting. I'm no artist myself when it comes to painting, but I love it. And it was getting back and realize it, because I had given up a lot of my hobbies and the things that I had loved. And I fell back in love with music. I fell back in love with writing. I fell back in love with art.
Margo?
Yeah, so what Dan is referring to is, yeah, the difficulty concentrating that individuals who are suffering with PTSD experience. Feels like memory loss. I can't tell you how many people that we have come to us thinking, convinced that they have ADHD or they're developing dementia, when actually it's PTSD, it's unprocessed trauma that's keeping them from being focused on kind of their day-to-day life and the present moment, because they are haunted by those memories that they have not processed. So traditional therapies, help them. We help trauma survivors process by actually going to the memories themselves and talking about them, writing about them, or thinking about them in a structured way to help reduce their kind of very strong reaction to those memories that happen as a result of developing PTSD. And helping them face things in their day-to-day life that might remind them or might be triggers for them to those reactions as well. So that is what we teach. Also, just being mindful. Mindfulness practices, meditative practices are a big part of therapy and treatment for a lot of people as well. And then we add the arts into there, like Dan said. For Dan, a big part of that for him was being able to focus on kind of his passions and being able to incorporate kind of his trauma journey using those modalities. That again, since 2015, 2016, I became more acutely aware of how valuable an element that can be to recovery.
This project really personalized, I think, something that I knew already. That arts, these links. I guess I'm just thinking today about, the reason that we have Veterans Day on November 11th is because 103 years ago was the end of World War I on November 11th. And so just looking at that, the artwork that came out of that, the war poets, the Eric Maria Remarque's All Quiet on the Western Front, and his other novels that where he's looking at his own experience. Slaughterhouse 5 from World War II, where Kurt Vonnegut is examining his trauma. Otto Dix's paintings of World War I, and Kathy Kolwitz's painting, woodcuts of she was not a soldier, but she's the mother of soldiers, and she was experienced war in Germany, and her work, her prints just really show that and that's not only the soldiers that are experiencing trauma from war, it's civilians as well. So it's always been there since before the Roman Empire, and it will be there forever. And we just keep doing this every generation, it seems.
I thought it was rather sadly poignant when in the local paper yesterday it was announced that there was a young man who is missing, a military vet suffering from PTSD, and a search is on for him. It's happening all the time. It's happening everywhere. And the question is, how are the arts helping that? Are we seeing, at least in this country, are we seeing, I hesitate to say measurable effect of the arts? There's always that quantification that our foundations want us to do when we do a project, but is that happening? Dan and Margo?
I can speak locally on that, and that's a terrific question, Sandy, because when we started our nonprofit, we didn't really know what to expect, but we had enough faith that it would make a overwhelmingly, I started receiving messages from people I've never met before. And because, like Dr. Norton said, of COVID, we did a lot of this remotely. And I received messages about how veterans have had challenges, but they put down an instrument or they put down a paintbrush. And because of some of the things that we offer, taking a writing and maybe creating a song out of it for them or hooking them up with a professional musician to tell their story through song, it's inspired them to fall back in love with, as I described earlier, the hobbies that they often just put aside even for many years. So I can attest that it's having a positive impact. And I had just had this conversation with a veteran last night, and it really warms my heart, and it's been our goal all along.
Well, as they say, think local, act global. So,
Exactly.
okay. Margo?
I'd like to think so too. I'd like to think we've saved lives. Again, it's hard to put numbers to it. It's hard to measure these things, but yeah, I've been told personally, there are personal stories who say without these programs, and people don't know that they'd still be here. So yeah, I believe it's helping.
You know, one of the observations I had during, or still having, during the pandemic is how the creative world became the world of I don't want to say retreat, but everywhere across the world. I don't care where you were. If you were playing a guitar on top of a building and, you know, near the Vatican in Italy, or doing chalk painting in a cul-de-sac in some small city in England, or you know, having groups singing on your driveway in, you know, a rural city in United States. Every single corner of this world was using the arts to cope with the pandemic. And of course, we're a lot more prejudiced when we're in it, and we think we need to be recognized more for it. But it's reassuring that there's a segment of the population that is specifically being affected by the benefits of the arts world. How can the cultural sector in this city particularly help with the world of PTSD and brain trauma? What can we do? What can the museum do? What can ballet companies or the symphony or the arts partnership? What can we do? What more can we do?
Yeah, what can we do?
Marcus said something that I have to disagree with. He goes, we were just the media for this. And Marcus, you and I had a conversation yesterday. I'm like, you did something because you understood. And when I wrote my book, that was the problem I had. I didn't want to, and when we do songs, we don't want to take away from the meaning of the initial writing. You took the display that you set up for me and you listened, and it was set up in a very meaningful way. And I don't even know if you did that or not. And it's important because it could be the smallest thing, not necessarily a trigger, but there are just little aspects. One of the songs that we wrote, the veteran wanted something about crushed Christmas cookies in it. That was the most important thing. And that's a really hard thing to write into a song, but we did it. And the way you set up that display and the entire staff there, it is such an important link in this chain of healing. And I personally thank you. And I know Dr. Norton thanks you too. We've had conversations about this. So you've done more than you think. And having that support, Sandy, through the art community and the organizations locally is so invaluable to those that are healing.
You used a really small word that's really big, and that's the word listen.
You're right. And this whole project has taught me to listen, to sit down and actually stop talking so much and listen with my ears and not my mouth.
Mm.
I recently used a phrase, actually, when I was encouraging people to join the event that we had last night. Listen, learn, and feel. They go together. Listen to learn and be willing to feel, because there's a lot of feels in this stuff. And this is, I think, why it's hard for people. Like you had alluded to, Sandy, we all have some connection with trauma, whether in our lives or a loved one's lives, multiple usually, right, in ourselves or our families. And so this is hard stuff, not just for veterans, but for all of us, for any of us. So it takes some bravery to learn and listen and feel.
That's a curious choice of words, Margo. Bravery, being applied to a group of people who we think and have believed for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years are the bravest of the brave. And yet, when it's an internal bravery, it's probably the most difficult battle of their lives. I think there was a session on last night. I'm not sure. It was a question that, if it didn't come up last night, I'm going to bring it up now. One of the things that the general public has done a lot of for the last few years was, to say to a vet, "Thank you for your service." And the question has been raised: how do you talk to a vet? So I'm going to throw that out and see what your responses are. How do we, as a general public, when we're confronted with a veteran and we want to express our thanks, how do we do that?
Well, we're going to have an event about that on December 7. Is that what it is? I don't have.
I queued that up well.
Yes, and it's actually called "How to Talk to a Veteran." So, so we're going to take questions. Go to HCSCConline.org and look at the events page. HCSCConline.org, Historical and Cultural Society of Clay County, and submit questions. What do you want to know? How do you want? And so I'm very eager to sit in on that too.
So the public, the people listening to this, can submit questions.
Yeah, and be there as well.
And be there. Okay. Again, what night is that? December
7.
Okay. What
We'll
time?
have 6 o'clock.
Okay.
We'll have a panel of veterans that have been in some way involved with this project that will be available to answer the audience questions, anything they ever wanted to ask or might have been afraid to ask.
So Dan, how do we talk to you?
I think helping the public understand it's okay to approach and say those things. And what you'll find is a lot of people that have served, especially veterans, are rather humble. And I don't want to use the word embarrassing, but it can make a veteran uncomfortable. So I thought about this for a long time because I fly a lot for work, and I usually wear this hat with the flag on it, and another veteran will approach me or a family, and I always thank them for being an American worth fighting for. That's just the way I respond, and it usually spurs an interesting conversation. And I love hearing people's stories. That's part of who I am, and don't necessarily like talking about myself so much all the time. However, it seems to be a really good icebreaker. So once you can get over that uncomfortable hump of, geez, I don't want to really be singled out. It's a person showing gratitude and not responding to that I think is bad. I think there should be a response to someone that approaches that. But just another American, just happened to have served, and happy to have done so. And not
Margo?
everybody's the same. I mean, you might get a different response from someone else. You don't know what's going on in their mind, but I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I would add, like Dan said, people are going to be in different places. You don't know if the person that you're approaching has PTSD and just can't talk about some of their experiences yet. But at the same time, if you're asking the questions, be open to hearing the heroic and the horrible situations that they might be willing to share with you if you ask in an open, truly caring way. But know that they may not be ready. And also, in my experience talking to veterans, many of them, they serve so that the rest of us don't have to experience those things. So they're going to be more careful about sharing with us because they worry about vicariously traumatizing us if we knew too much about what they were experiencing. So in a sense, part of their mission has been to protect us, again, both physically, but psychologically and emotionally too. So that can be a barrier as well for them to share the full story because they're protecting us. They're continuing to protect us.
In preparation for this, ran across an amazing statistic. I think there are only 7% of the nation is in the military. 7% is protecting the remaining 93% of us. That's a stunning figure. I'd like to open it up to the people who are here. You can unmute and ask a question if you want to. Feel free to do that. You don't have to go into the chat room and type something in. So if something pops up you want to talk, let us know. Are there particular art forms that seem to be more beneficial to the PTSD world? Is the theater, acting it out, or is it the visual arts, or is it, for example, for Dan, it's music, a combination of words and notes? Is there a world that needs to be much more invested in terms of PTSD recovery?
I think it's a holistic approach. You have to have a variety, something that if you talk with a veteran, you'll find that they had some type of exposure to the arts at some point. And whether that even be, to me, I build guitars as more of a hobby. And for me, that is really an outlet for me. And it may be a woodworking type situation. We're doing some type of wood art, because guitars are artistic instruments to me. They come from a tree, and all of a sudden they're making the sound. I think the holistic approach with painting and everything, I think if you were to zero it in and try and say, hey, this one's more valuable than the other, you might cut out a population of veterans.
I agree. In fact, I made a list of different to make sure I didn't miss any. So the visual arts with the masks that we do, the photography, the physical arts, Josh Zeiss's project, for those of you that aren't familiar with that. So he's an Iraq war veteran. He's an employee of Plains Art Museum, but he's an Iraq veteran artist. So when he learned the day he learned he was going to Iraq, he took he did a hike in the Fargo Moorhead area. And several years ago, as part of the project Unpack, he retook that same hike. He, while carrying an ice block on his back, he chiseled a block of ice into a rucksack, put it on his back, and took this walk in the same route that he took the day he learned he was going to Iraq, along with some media folks and some family and loved ones came with him. And he used the lovely analogy of, as the ice was melting, as he was talking about his experiences, the weight, the load of his experiences got lighter. So that was a very powerful symbol, kind of a physical artistic way of expression, which I thought was very powerful.
Yep. And as that block of ice was literally melting away,
Yes, yes.
really
Yeah,
profound.
we won't talk about the blisters that Zach got
Yeah.
with the water dripping down his legs into his boots. We won't talk about that part.
Yeah, yeah. And the music, of course, that's Dan's forte. Writing is another one. So another part of this project this last year was hosting a writer's workshop. So we have another local, Dan is a writer, but we have many other writer veterans as well in our communities. Wendell Affelt is a Vietnam veteran writer. He's published many books, and he actually teaches writing to other veterans. And so we had him here this summer do a couple of writing workshops with our veterans. He teaches about the idea of using writing as a way of processing experiences, writing your experience, writing your trauma. And that's actually part of some of the therapies that we do too. So that's a very real creative art way of processing. And that actually very much was part of our event last night that we can talk more about if people have questions about that, in which we had veterans and and other readers share written word that were a part of somebody's recovery journey, whether it was a piece that they wrote as part of their therapy or a piece that they wrote about an experience that they had. Very powerful writings that were shown last night and can be accessed on YouTube if anybody's interested as well. Drama is another one. You mentioned that, Sandy. Absolutely. So shout out to one of our committee members, Amy Tichy, very involved, an integral part of this process. She has drama therapy background, actually, and she's a sister to 2 Iraq veterans as well. So this is a passion project for her too. So yes, can be very much a part of it. We've had some plays actually that have been, played in our community that are related to the veterans' experiences, which have been very powerful. There's a national one that's out there right now. If anybody's interested, we actually that was one of our options of trying to get this group to come to us. A group of veterans who created a play called Last Out, Elegy of a Green Beret. And it's actually available online for free to anyone today. They made this play before the pandemic and they were kind of touring the country. It's about an experience of Afghanistan service members going in and coming home from Afghanistan, which is very timely now. And they made it as a play. They were traveling the country and then the pandemic hit and of course it changed everybody's trajectories. So they actually filmed the play and it's now available to watch. So yeah, very powerful, very, very powerful way of telling a story and helping viewers gain some understanding and compassion.
I also want to tell another Josh Zeiss story. He'll probably email me and tell me I got part of it wrong. But I think Josh went to Afghanistan as an EMT and was having a difficult time, and I think expressed that to his brother, and Zach received a package, an 11-pound package of, I think it was 11 pounds of clay, of Hebron clay, and he just started playing with it, and that became his release. And he said, "This is what I want to do." And Zach is an amazing teacher, but he's also an amazing ceramist. And he now works for Hebron Brick, and he also has his own construction designing company. So out of that little block of 11 pounds of clay, a whole new life and trajectory has been created. Yes, let's talk about the writing. What happened last night, Margo?
So this was kind of our main event. I may have several events, but kind of the biggest kind of event through our project Warriors in the North, Healing Through Art. We called it the Veterans Performance Showcase. So if you look up I just checked this morning. If you type in Veterans Performance Showcase on YouTube, it's the first thing that comes up. So it's available for watching online now. This was a combination of music and writing. There were 13 performances last night of musical pieces and writing pieces, all done by local veterans. Many performed by the veterans themselves, and if they weren't, or if the veterans themselves weren't able or willing to get up on stage and do it themselves, we had performers, including Marcus, who read parts. Extremely powerful stories, extremely powerful look into personal, very personal experiences and the kinds of things, many that most of us have no clue could be a part of a military experience.
One of the things I've been kind of rattling around as we've talked is that one thing that the arts organizations in the community could do is to take all of the resources that you have been talking about and create a page on our website so people can access it. We could have an art in the military page. Just from this conversation, I think we've identified probably a dozen, maybe more. From the YouTube you just talked about, Margo, to maybe we listen to Dan Hudson playing some music, and Marcus reading. That would be fabulous. And I think if the whole community of arts does that, not everybody is a Plains Art Museum person. Some of them are opera people. If the opera company did that, I think the Arts Partnership would certainly be an organization that could look at doing something like that. And I think we could serve the community more, as Dan said, more holistically. There is a question in the chat, and I'm going to go look at it. Hope I don't lose you. Great idea. Thank you. And it's from Miss Delvell. Appreciate it. I think we've covered a lot.
Too. The music that was played last night, Joe and who else played it?
Jim.
Yep.
And then Zach as well.
And Zach, yeah. It was amazing, especially knowing where they're coming from when they introduce and say where they're coming from. The writings that were written by these people are just so heartbreaking and tear-jerking. I had to read my parts several times practicing because I couldn't get through without crying. And it's all real and it's all local. It's all people like that. I met two of the people whose parts I read last night, and Shakespeare couldn't come up with anything better. This is actually real. It's nonfiction, and not that fiction is bad, but it's yeah.
Whoa, you froze on us, Marcus. Well,
So Marcus actually read the part. Ironically, he read. So as part of some of these projects were related to writings that were done in therapy with the veterans. They one of the assignments that we'll do with moral injury focused therapy in particular is imagine a conversation with you and someone that was involved in your traumatic event. And so many times these imagined conversations are with people who are no longer with us. And so ironically, Marcus ended up playing, was there 2 or 3 deceased individuals as involved those imagined conversations, which can be a very powerful way of kind of putting the perspective, kind of switching the way that you think about a situation as related to what might that person say to you now as a result of learning about how this experience has affected you. Very powerful.
How do communities heal when soldiers heal?
I would say, again, it goes back to what can the arts community do and the promotion of it. It's an educational and a learning curve. And it goes even to the simple question of how do you talk to a veteran? Being educated and learning about it. And we encourage participation. In Operation Check 6, we like to include the families because these families having someone healing from post-traumatic stress, they go through quite a bit as well, if not more. I've got a very loving and forgiving wife and son. I'm very fortunate to have that situation. Not all veterans do, but the education that they received too, they walked the journey with me, and educating the public is incredibly helpful in my opinion.
And I would say exactly what you just said, Sandy. Communities do heal when veterans heal, even if we don't know it. Because war does come home to all of us. We're all affected in some way, whether we know it or not.
One of the first reading that we did last night got me thinking a lot, because it ends with, it's a Vietnam veteran, and it ends with who had to do some things that he was ordered to do, and he thinks, and he's wondering, am I going to go to hell for eternity for this? And he has the not just psychological trauma, but also some physical effects of what happened to him in Vietnam. And at the end of the reading, he muses about like who is responsible, who should take ownership of wars? Is it the soldiers who are doing the work? Is it the army who trained them but didn't prepare them for the horrors that they'd see? Is it the president, the congressmen, the people who elect the congressmen who make these decisions? And he says that it's everybody should own a piece of it. So, I mean, I think people in the community should know what the consequences of some event that maybe we don't even, I mean, how often did we think about Somalia in 1997 when my brother-in-law was there? Whichever year that was, I don't even know what year that was, but I think about Somalia now because it had an effect on my brother-in-law.
I don't know if there was an indigenous presenter last night, but the Native American participation in the military by percentage of population is the highest in the nation. And it is in this part of the country, it's a significant cultural community. It's a significant agricultural community. And, I think we need to pay much more attention. And I'm going to use the word leverage in a good way. Their response and knowledge about participating and serving much more than we do currently. So any final thoughts?
Sandy?
Marcus, for somebody who didn't serve in the military and was just hanging stuff on the walls, this project is much more internal than you let on in the beginning. And I appreciate you revealing that. Margo, thanks for being the drover of this project. And I hope it's not a one-off. I hope we see that other arts organizations pick up the mantle over the course of the, maybe next quarter century and do similar things. And Dan, let us know where you're playing music.
I play anywhere I can right now.
Okay.
I think you have a question too that popped up in the chat there. So.
Okay. Can I ask a question? Yes.
Sandy, it's Dana with the Arts Partnership. Thank you for convening this important conversation. And Marcus, Dan, and Margo, thanks for being on the panel. I guess the question that I have, particularly Margo and Dan, for you is, are there things that you would like to see the arts sector doing more of, or are there do you have a wish list of ways we could work with you more closely, or things that you need that we could try to provide that would serve this work?
I know I have lofty goals, which I know enough just to probably be considered dangerous. One of the things that I'm currently working on is working with actually one of the performers last night. He's a veteran service officer serving 2 counties, and he's young and he's motivated and he's a veteran himself. And he wants to set something up at the Veterans Home in Lisbon to bring some music and some art therapy to that location. Some of these individuals are somewhat bound to the facility, so I'm honored and humbled to come to them. I think it would be absolutely terrific. And just on a side note, if we have time, that he was so nervous last night, and he's so good. He is just so good. Music has brought him out of his shell. He would sit around campfires according to his friends and not really sing. This young man has the most beautiful voice. It sounds like old country. And the guitar he played, he was so nervous he forgot to tell the story of his guitar. It was sent to him while he was deployed. And he chose to play that guitar last night. And he sent me so many apologetic messages. I forgot to tell the story of the guitar. I'm like, it's okay, it's a process. And I sat with him for about an hour prior to the performance. He told me all about it and about brought a tear to my eye. So anything that the Arts Partnership can do to help promote the healing of veterans, whether it be going to a veterans home or even literally a vet's home who's homebound, I'm up for. And if it's teaching them 3 guitar chords, playing them a song, or just talking about music or anything that can help in the art world, I'm up for, and it really has become my passion. I hope that helps.
That's great. Thank you, Dan. Margo, is there anything that you would put on a wish list that I perhaps can try to facilitate?
Well, so I would echo what Dan's saying in terms of finding places where you have a captive audience of veterans, whether it's at the veterans home or, on our community living center in the VA, bringing things to, veterans who don't, who aren't very mobile. Many opportunities there. If we're talking kind of just the veteran community in general, I think we have kind of momentum now so that we'll continue to do these kinds of projects and performances in the community. So as much as you can do to support those things, I'm envisioning every couple of years doing kind of what we're doing this fall. I don't know if the MCOMS feels like that they have ownership of it now and they'll continue to take it, or if there are other partnerships that we could make in the community to make this happen in the future years as well. But I think we have the momentum.
But
Yeah.
we like it. We've made friends, and but
yes.
yeah, everybody should hire Dan and Operation Check 6 to play everywhere.
So I have more of a comment, and then in addition to Dana's question, that might be a little bit more specific. But first is thank you all for coming and presenting. I've often felt that the arts that we often overemphasize the aesthetic value of the arts and undervalue the very practical. They're just a practical part of life, and they're very beneficial in meeting basic human needs. And so I really appreciate the application here. I did see the mask project a few years ago at the VA, and despite the fact that Dr. Norton, you said that many don't identify as artists, that doesn't show. Is a really, really well done project. So they might not identify as such, but I would just put that identification on them in many cases, because at least in my view, some really well done stuff. I think
We do too.
To Dana's question, is there room, I don't want to say is there room, is there a need that is currently under provided? So I guess, do you see a need in the community for more therapeutic applications of the arts for people with PTSD? In which case, should arts organizations Should we continue to add more programming to meet that need, in addition to what's already done?
It's okay to say yes.
Mhm.
I don't think there can be too little. I think the more that it's out there and the more availability it is, oftentimes veterans healing from trauma have a tough time taking that first step. And just to clarify, this is part of the process. What Dr. Norton and the staff at the VA do, and other professionals in the community, is really the key. That step needs to be accomplished in conjunction with or first. The clinical aspect of it, this is going to help. And I speak from experience on that. And the availability of it, if I see something that's available and easy to step into and it may fit, for me, accessibility and the ease of stepping into it draws that passion in for veterans. There's some stoic veterans out there, and depending on age, location, again, we like to use a broad paintbrush and cover as big a geographical area as we can, whether it be St. Cloud, Sioux Falls, and I know we've included them in our meetings in the past, and maybe it will grow. We like you said, Sandy, think globally.
So to clarify, Dan, is it your view that there's programming in place? We're at a point where perhaps promotion or providing access or raising awareness of existing opportunities is a way that the arts organizations in town could or should consider helping? Is that safe to say, rather than producing our own programming?
I would say producing programming or new and innovative programming is important, but the promotion of current things that are established and available is very important. The organization, we could have averted, or we did avert a near disaster with the sound system last night. Thank goodness we had someone who knew what was going on, because I'm a drummer and never let a drummer run the sound system, because all you'll hear are drums. But we were very fortunate and it worked out perfectly. I knew it would. He was just running a little late. So the established programs that are there that make it really initially easy for the veteran helps, because if they step into something, because not everything in the military is organized all the time, and veterans have a level of understanding of that. But if you make it even more simple, the amount of joy and benefit they see can probably come a lot faster, is what I'm saying. So short answer is existing programs promotion is very important, and new and innovative ideas are equally as important as well.
And I would add the necessity of partnering with a veteran. If you're creating new programs, ideally a veteran in recovery that has some connections in the community, some connections with other veterans. Trust is huge in these kinds of programs. You're not going to get anybody to show up if they don't know who you are, if they don't have some sense that you have genuine caring and that you have some sense of what you're doing. There have been programs like this that have been, in smaller groups, where if you don't have that trust, nobody shows up, or very few people do. So the marketing, the trust that you can build with having people involved in the planning is absolutely vital.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was really gonna second that. Andy and Sandy and Dana and people who work in the arts who want to help promote this is they, rather than creating something from scratch and just look at what's happening already and try to promote it, find the partners, find Operation Check 6, find Dr. Norton, and look at artists that you already know, like Ken Anderson or Josh Zeiss, and see how you can be helpful, because as the upcoming program is how to talk to a veteran, you might, if you don't know the ins and outs of trauma, which I don't, then just, you might do something inadvertently wrong, or go about something the wrong way. So some people don't like to be pushed, having, we need to fill this wall with 15 more pieces of art or something like that, it might not happen. So that's not the best way to go about it. So yeah, I think that just looking at the great stuff, the great artists, the great musicians that are in the community anyway, and just seeing how you can be helpful, how you can amplify what they do.
Thank you. Thank you all, Margo and Marcus and Dan, and all of you who joined us today. This has been something I've been wanting to do for several years, and the stars aligned finally. And I hope we can take off from it even more than just this little session. I'm glad we recorded it. We'll put it on our website and get it out there. One of the things that Dan mentioned was get it to the vets, not just expect the vets to come to us. Sometimes the communities think museums are containers of stuff, and yes, we are, but that's changing. We are putting ourselves more and more out into the community every single day, and the museum art world is really changing rapidly in that direction. And I think this is a singular opportunity for us to get outside our walls and inside the walls of some very special people. Again, thank you. Have a great rest of the day. Enjoy whatever you can grab in the next few minutes for your lunch before you get back to work. We'll see you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.